Here. I second the motion. I second the motion.
Mr. Taylor did.
Yes.
About reopening Sunnyside, Liberty, and Drexel, so it was really nice going and seeing, how everyone is preparing, and everyone's really positive attitude, so it was really nice.
Yeah, I just kind of want to wish all of our teachers and our staff the first day back. Happy first day back with our students last week. From what I heard, it was very, very successful, and I look forward to finishing out the year. I just hope it works out for everyone, and it's a good year.
Thank you, Ms. Hernandez. Members of the audience, members of the governing board, Ms. Hernandez. I want to start by just welcoming everyone here, but also just a big congratulations to our Law for Future Cities program. As you all know, Ms. Nichols does just an amazing job with our students. So please join me in congratulating Law for Future Cities program for the wonderful recognition they have received this month. Lawford's engineering teams represented our district in a 2021 Future Cities competition last week. All 8 Lawford teams received awards for their Future Cities projects of sustainable habits on the moon, including number 1, Best Essay, Best Model Slideshow, Best Project Management Award, Excellence in Quality Concepts and Design, Best Communication System, Best Multimodal Transportation System, Best Future City Transportation System, and Most Innovative Design. They also earned ASU's Walton Community Sustainability Design Awards for 2 Top 5 Teams awards. In addition, Future Cities just received multiple recognitions from SARCEF, a nonprofit organization that strives to create the next generation of critical thinkers and problem solvers through science and engineering. They make us very proud. Great work, law firm. We also have Education Advocate of Science and Engineering Award, of course, goes to our Jackie Nichols, one of 20 teachers in Southern Arizona recognized for science and engineering advocacy this year. And then SARCEF's Grand Award was 3rd place in engineering and environmental engineering for 8th grade. It's called Passion and Science for Engineering and Environmental Engineering as well. So just a multitude of just awards and recognitions for a wonderful school and a wonderful program. Thank you, Ms. Nichols. And as Ms. Hernandez mentioned, our very own, again, Desert View senior, you have to read her poem. It's just, it's amazing. Not surprising from our Desert View senior, Ms. Ariel Salcido, and this year's Tucson Festival of Books Poetry Contest winner. So her poem shares a glimpse into the diversity of her Mexican-American upbringing. You can read her poem, Where I'm From, on the district's Facebook or Instagram pages as well. So please take a look at it and read it. You'll just be so impressed by this young woman. Thank you so much. That concludes our superintendent's report.
And we have no recognitions. Mr. Taylor, do we have anyone
No call to the audience.
And can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
I second the motion.
Is there a second? Roll call?
Ms. Dahl? Yes. Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Ms. Nunez? Aye. Ms. Hernandez?
Aye. Motion passes, and now we have the opening of school.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. I'll get that pulled up and we'll get started. Just talk a little bit about opening school. Make sure this, my advanced thing, there it goes. Last time we presented, I shared the CDC dashboard, which was their data tracker specifically. I want to start with that because that was something we pivoted to because we were aware that the Pima County Health Department was no longer really giving any recommendations. And the CDC seems to be where everyone has been migrating to for purposes of making decisions on local data and making decisions on opening school. Right now, if I pulled open this CDC data tracker, if I can link that to our Pima County, I just want to give a up-to-date view on this. I know, excuse me, I know Mr. Baca is actually setting this up, so you go on there. So those of you that have not been able to, you go to Arizona and Pima County, just for those in the audience or those who are watching. Once you pull up the county, you can see highlighted here, we are now in the substantial category of risk. That means we are under 100 per 100,000 in our population of cases. As you can see, we're at 999, I can't even see that, 995? 95. I'm seeing double. Take off my glasses. 95 per 100,000, which is puts us in the substantial category, along with the percent positivity, which is 5.12%. As you all are aware, that this is really the guidance that we're going to be driving a lot of decisions moving forward. I want to see if Mr. Baca, can you go to also to the Arizona Department, the ADHS website, which is one that had been being used statewide to make decisions on data as well. Once you go to the ADH website and you actually scroll down, can you, they no longer are using the metrics. They basically have erased those metrics that they had, the three colored metrics, and have replaced it with the CDC. Mr. Bach, if you can go, sorry, if you go back up to the ADH, just to their main COVID, if you go back right there, if you scroll down now, go straight, sorry, one more time. Go up again and go to COVID in the little red, go down more. Right in there, where there should be the schools dashboard. If you click on the schools dashboard, it's now been replaced by the same set of metrics from CDC. So now there's alignment there. You can see in the chart where it actually says Pima County, and that in Pima County you can see it's a substantial low and substantial transmission. Again, coinciding with how we open schools, which was what I showed the governing board last time. So now the Department of Health Services at the state level is aligning with CDC. We're aligning with CDC, and right now that in support of our hybrid model that we're currently in place right now, given the data in Arizona. I just wanted to show that. I apologize for a little bit of moving back and forth. As I go back to the presentation, and we've welcomed our students back to hybrid. There's definitely data to support what we're doing from a national level now at the state level, and that alignment was concerning before because you had different messages being given by different entities, and now there's consistency on the message, which I think is helpful for us as we're continuing to make decisions on moving forward. Here's some pictures of opening day. Thank you, Ms. Nunez, for joining me the other day, just so you can get a glimpse on what schools are looking like and how people are feeling. I think that's something we just have to continue to keep an eye on. You can see just some of the cute pictures of kids returning to school. second opening day. Actually, third if you count August 5th. So third opening day of school for us here as well. As you all are aware, this is just information that we have to process as a governing board and as a school entity right now. The executive order for opening in-person learning, if we can click on that executive order, please. And we won't read through this unless you feel compelled to read through it, but it's basically has our governor last week ordered that all schools must open by March 15th. This was a direct result of, I'll be honest, with politics, of people being upset with schools not opening, right? And so much of that had to do with Phoenix schools districts, and as a result of this governor's order was released earlier last week. The order itself seemed at face value to be consistent with what we had been doing as a district, which is we've opened up prior to the March 15th, and more specifically, we're following CDC guidelines. There's references to community spread, specifically referencing CDC type of language in the executive order. And so a lot of questions surfaced from that, and as a result, our Arizona Department of Education released guidance on Friday late afternoon. When that guidance was released, and I'll go back to the presentation, it included this particular language on one of the pages specifically, where it said, all elementary schools are required to provide full in-person instruction to families that request it. Middle and high schools located in counties with low to moderate transmission are required to provide in-person instruction for families that request it. In addition to the requirements to provide in-person options, schools are permitted to continue to offer hybrid and virtual remote options. For example, if they typically offer a 5-day-a-week calendar, they should offer full 5 days, depending on how their calendars are provided. Here's the kicker, and this is information that many of you are receiving here in real time, and information that I received yesterday as well. This is not my preferred way of communicating this to everyone. I just want to go on record of that, and it's not the way we normally communicate. But legal counsel has chimed in across school districts across the state, and the consensus and the interpretation from both ADE and the consensus from legal attorneys across the state is that we must open all elementary schools 5 days a week with the current executive order. In discussion with our legal counsel, the order specifically states either by March 15th or after your scheduled spring break, if it's already scheduled. Of course, our scheduled spring break is in 2 more weeks, so that would mean that on August 6th, we would have to open up our elementary schools. I'm sorry, April 6th, April. I'm like the 3 times we were opening, I got my dates all mixed up. April 6th is the Tuesday we return from our scheduled spring break would be when all elementary schools will be required to open 5 days a week for full time. Middle and high schools still fall under the same guidelines that we've been following, and which I shared with the governing board last week, but it does significantly change what's going to happen at the elementary schools after the spring break. I've had very few conversations with folks about this because this is happening in real time as we're getting clarification. So I wanted to bring it to the governing board first to have this discussion on this new interpretation, and more importantly, how the executive order is now going to impact our elementary schools, specifically after April 6th. There's really not much more on this. Let me try to advance the slide. Sorry about that. Except for some assessment. I just want to do this quickly because I know I want to get into a discussion around opening school as well. But if you don't mind, there were some questions prior. I know Ms. Dong, you had raised about AZ merit and what are the requirements for AZ merit. Basically, these are assessment timelines and dates for 5th, 8th, and 11th grade, which will begin the week of March 22nd. ACT, April 6th. Our move on when reading for 3rd grade would be April 8th, 9th, 12th, and 13th. And 4th through 8th grade and 10 will be April 5th through May 14th. The first one on the top is science. I just want to clarify that those dates are not for AZ merit, it's for science, which happens the week of 22nd. Now, if you notice for grades 4th, 8th, and 10th, you see May 14th. So what ADE did in interpreting the federal guide, they extended the window to allow us to test up until May 14th. The requirement specifically to test all students in person, it still stands from ADE, even though the federal government allowed states to give the test remotely. Our state chose not to. They said that there was some security concerns that they had, and because some school districts don't have the capacity to do the assessment virtually, they just kept it being something that had to be done in person. And the only thing they did was extend the actual testing window till May 14th, which is the week before our last week of school. So we'll continue to work on those to move our, try to get kids in. Those we're not gonna, it's gonna be difficult because we're gonna have families that don't believe that this is something that's important. And if I can advance to the next slide, this thing isn't working. These are just kind of what I just explained. It must be administered in person. Each student will require two testing days. There will be some flexibility for scheduling outside the typical school day, which we need to get approval from ADE, but that's going to have to happen, particularly for those remote students at the middle and high school level who choose not to, or at the elementary, middle, and high school level who are still remote. And really trying to continue to run our bus routes so that we can kind of accommodate students. Alternative strategies for makeups and for parents who are nervous about sending their students to a site will be something we're going to do site by site, and trying to figure out how we can meet the 95% requirement for testing our students, which it's going to be a big challenge during this time right now. So I apologize I jumped to this, but I just want to make sure we capture this as we get into a discussion specifically on what this new executive order means. Thank you, Ms. Hernandez. I'm going to open up for questions.
I actually have a question. I'm not sure if you touched on this already, but if I missed it, for the testing, if we have families who are concerned about having a lot of students in a classroom during test time, you said we can make accommodations for them?
That's correct, Mr. Hernandez. We can make accommodations. We've got some latitude there that can actually provide families with some individualized support based upon where their fears are.
Thank you.
I just had one question. Does the state's order to open K5, K6 full time, does that align with the CDC's recommendation?
So the CDC currently recommends, based upon substantial spread, that we continue K-12 and hybrid. Okay. So it's not in current alignment. Will it align on April 6th with that? That's still unknown. The data is going down. I'm not sure we'll reach 50 by the time we're required to open.
Okay.
Mr. Taylor, just to add to that, I do know all other districts in Pima County are complying with the order, and most of them are having their spring break on the week of the 15th, and will open up full time at their elementaries on the 22nd. Okay. Ms. Dong, I saw you had or Miss, I don't know, I'm sorry.
I have a question. So if there's a lot of kids that pick hybrid and are on campus for elementary, logistically, or do they still have to stay 6 feet apart, or how are we planning on having that amount of kids in each classroom?
That's a great question, Ms. Nunez. The current design from CDC, and the reason they have that is they figure by the time you reach moderate, 6 feet distances goes out the window. So the they basically say to distance as much as try to keep distancing as much as possible, but that falls really under the moderate spread, not under substantial. Substantial does say 6 feet distancing. Under the current order and given the amount of choices that people that are coming in, it's going to be impossible in certain classrooms to keep 6 feet distancing. We could put all the other mitigation efforts in place, but 6 feet in some of our classrooms in certain schools is going to be impossible to do. We could only say that we're going to try to keep them as distant as much as possible, but 6 feet will not fit. And Ms. Nunez, you and I walked even some classrooms at Liberty, and we saw even with maybe like 10 kids in there, 10 students, if they got into 21s, there's no way they can separate from 6 feet.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you.
I had another question.
Mr. Hernandez, I have a question.
Oh, she can go first.
Okay.
Can I see that second slide, the slide up that had the dates for the testing?
Yes.
Okay, what's the date again that we're gonna be coming back? April something?
April 6th is the date that we would have to return for specifically for full intern. I just want to make sure I'm clarifying. So we're all elementary will be the ones that will come down full time on April 6th. Everyone else will be back in hybrid on April 6th.
Okay, that ASCI grades 5, 8 test that we have to give the assessment on the week of March 22nd, is there any chance that we can move that to April so that we can not have to deal so much with the fact that they have to be in person, or does that make it easier or harder?
I'm going to ask maybe, let me ask Ms. Benton or Ms. Dr. Hackett if they can come up and just answer that. Ms. Dong, she's coming up. Just let me have her.
Good evening, Ms. Dong. Our original window was set for that week in March, and we just felt with the amount of testing that was going to be happening and the amount of coordination that would require around AZM2, we would rather keep it in that week just to kind of get it done, get it out of the way. And it also serves as kind of a test run since it's only those 3 targeted grades, and we can maybe work out a few kinks before we go massive spread with AZM2. So we'd prefer to keep the AZ Sci that week before spring break.
Okay, yeah, that's what I just wanted to know, what would make it easier. So it sounds like it would make it easier just to keep it there. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I actually have one question. It's around the classrooms as well. If it's not a realistically, you mentioned it's not really possible to be 6 feet apart. But because of the executive order, we have to come back K through 6. So is there any sort of spaces that we have in our elementary schools that can be used instead of, like, if there's too many students in one classroom? Have we thought about that?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. So there are places where we can accommodate, but if you look at the classrooms in certain schools, there are not enough empty spaces to really accommodate enough of the classrooms, if that makes sense, right? So we could probably look at, like a 6th grade classroom where you've got just bigger kids and we need to spread them out and maybe use the library. But then I still got a 5th grade. It has similar challenges. So I do know we can. To be honest with you, Ms. Hernandez, we're going to have to look at all configurations to make this work, but it's still going to challenge the 6 feet is going to be a challenge to make it. We just don't have enough classroom spaces, even though we're going to make the attempt. I do know there are going to be classrooms that are not going to be able to do that, and we won't have the space to do so. I just want to be real honest about that.
Yeah, that makes sense. If we can try and explore that, that would be great, because I'm concerned, just like a lot of our families and staff, about crowded classrooms.
Yes.
And then for the vaccinations, is it over 90% of the staff that have wanted to get a vaccination have already, right?
Yes, and
Is that the number?
yes. So this week also, I just confirmed with Brian Eller this morning. There were about 90 employees who were kind of holdouts, either because they were on that original list that couldn't get logged in at first, or were those that actually were sick and were waiting. So they had to wait because they actually had COVID and they wanted to wait like the whatever their doctor required, the 30 to 90 days. And all those employees should have gotten an email on Saturday to go in this week. So keeping my fingers crossed, it seems like the majority of our if not all of them that need or want a vaccine have been scheduled for one. We're going to follow up this week with those additional ones. I know Brian and I talked today. Mr. Baca sent out a reminder email to make sure that they checked out. Mr. Baca, is that correct? I'm going to have him just update you, Ms. Hernandez, really briefly, because he also was the one sending the names to Brian on last week.
Hi, President. President Hernandez, Mr. Holmes, and members of the board. We emailed all of the respondents who indicated that they still wish to have a vaccine, and so far I've received positive response from approximately 50% of them saying, I already got my vaccine, I already got my email, I found it. I didn't hear any responses that they didn't receive a response. So we're just watching those emails, but I do think, as Mr. Holmes is referring to, all of the final group of individuals who needed to make an appointment with this last push did receive an opportunity to make an appointment, and they are following through.
Yeah, and I believe they're getting them in this week too, Ms. Hernandez. So when I talked to Brian, that this isn't one that they schedule. It's like they can schedule it this week, those final ones, to actually get it done at the U of A.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And another question, for the testing, are we still offering that on our campuses?
Yeah, yes, at the high schools, they started this week, so they did the random testing at Sunnyside today, so Tuesdays will be Sunnyside and Thursdays are Desert View. And any employee that wants to go and do that, I am exploring right now, Ms. Hernandez, the ability to get rapid testing kits for our elementary schools. I'm not sure how quickly I can pull that off. I know Mr. Gastelum is working on that. Particularly, it would be really great if now that we know we have to open, if I can pull off getting some of those availability for symptomatic students. So instead of sending them home, we can actually do a test and do kind of some quick contact tracing as well. And so we're exploring that option. The only good thing here is that because our spring break is so late, we have a little bit of time to put some other additional systems in place that we had not planned for, which would include some of these rapid testing.
Gotcha. Can we explore maybe moving, if we're having K through 6 open full time through executive order, can we move the testing sites to the elementaries themselves to make it more accessible for our staff there, or families who want to take advantage of that?
We can explore. The challenge is going to be, since they have limited staff, there's really only 2 days, and so the high schools provided more space. And because we have 13 elementary sites, I don't know if they're going to be able to accommodate.
No. So, sorry. So yeah. I just mean, I understand that. I'm not asking for additional days or to be at all sites. If we can just look into replacing, holding it at the high schools into 2 of our elementary schools, if we're going to be having, because of executive order, everyone there full time.
We can talk to them and see what makes the most sense for them. There's a couple larger elementaries, and maybe we can concentrate some of those in there. It's a little trickier, but let's explore it, and then we'll report back to you at the next board meeting.
Thank you.
I had another question. Under this order for the full-time in-person K through 6, are we still allowed to offer virtual learning as an alternative to those students? That's
a great question. So it's still parental choice. It's still being honored. So it would only apply to those students that chose hybrid.
Okay, we just have to, so it's more of a, okay, I understand.
Yeah, so instead of splitting the students into 2 days a week, they would all come at the same time.
Okay.
I have another question as well. This is a little different. So when the kids do come back, are they going to be required to wear uniforms? Because I know that might be hard for some parents in the middle of the school year or like now to maybe like get uniforms. or be like accessible? I know there's not like a lot of sounding right now, or what's the like process with that?
Yeah, we've asked all our principals to be flexible. Even now, where we're hybrid, we told them not to make a big deal. Right now, it's too difficult to get everyone to go buy whole uniforms. We've had flexibility. We've had parents call. I know all our principals have been open, either getting them through our kind of any of our clothing banks that we have for some students, and for others that we just can't. We just have not held the same standard that we had in the past. So that's our expectation, that we're not going to hold kids and parents accountable at this late in the game to wear uniforms every day. We're going to still try to help them if we can, just so there's continuity. But in terms of actually refusing to allow them to come in and putting parents on the spot, we've made it real clear that we're not going to do that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have one last question. I saw that one of the, when we're talking about the executive order, one of the things there was that if the students had been staying away and going remote, that the parents and the students still had the option of continuing to be remote. But are we also giving them the opportunity, from the sounds of it, then we are going to give them also the opportunity that if they've decided to come for those 5 days a week in person, that the ones that have been remote will also switch to coming into the classroom. And I ask this because I know there's different students and they might be at different places in their studies, and so I was just wondering how that works.
Yeah, we've had some shifts right now. My gut is, Ms. Dong, and I'm trying to predict, and I'm sorry, I don't have really good data, but my gut is right now it seems like people have made their choices, and anyone that needed to be accommodated have been accommodated. I'm not sure the 5 day a week will change any of those accommodations right now. We still have a lot of families who are fearful about sending their kids to school. If anything, we may have a parent that says, you know what, I like my kid in hybrid. I'm worried about the crowded classroom, and may choose to go back remote, which is a potential possibility. I just won't know until we begin to message this.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. And Ms. Hernandez, I'll just say this to the governing board. This is not typical that we've presented to a governing board. Basically, teachers who are out there listening right now are hearing this for the first time. That's not my preferred way of communication, but we are in a tight timeline. When I found this out on Tuesday, I felt it necessary to communicate first with our governing board. I did talk to SCA leadership just to give them a heads up of what I had heard. I am following up with the SCA executive team on Thursday just to talk a little bit through this new interpretation of the order, what we're hearing and the expectation, and then we'll communicate accordingly to staff and parents here at the end of this week on what the implications are with the executive order for April 6th.
I appreciate it. Can we make sure when we communicate with the parents and guardians that we let them know that there are options if they do want to switch back?
Yes, we will do so.
If we can just break it down a bit, because the executive order is a bit, hard to read if you're not used to reading them. So we can just make it so it's more understandable for folks, please.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll reference it, but we'll try to keep all the jargon out of the letter so that it's just much more clearer where the decision is coming from, and then what the choices are for them. Yeah, we'll work on the language.
And sorry, just one last question for our staff. When is the soonest that we'll be able to let them know what's going on?
As soon as possible. I think we need to. I wanted to inform the governing board first. I think we need to craft some communication to them here within the next day or two.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. That concludes our presentation. If there are no questions, Ms. Hernandez.
All right, and now we have freshman transition.
Yes, I'll have Mr. Castellum and the team. We have a great team. I'll let him introduce who's coming up. They have a great presentation and great people talking about what we're trying to do to support our students in this transition. Mr. Castellum.
Thank you. Ms. Hernandez, Mr. Holmes, members of the board, members of the audience, thank you for giving us this opportunity to discuss high school academies, but more important, student choice as our students pick their college and career pathways. As we, before I get into the presentation, I do want to recognize the efforts of the team putting this presentation together. So who I have with me tonight is NJ Utter, our Director of CTE, John Schubel from Sunnyside High School, Freshman Academy Assistant Principal, Kathy Dong, Desview High School Freshman Academy Assistant Principal. And I also want to thank the collaboration that's taken place amongst our counselors at the middle school and high school level, and the collaboration with our middle school administration. So, next slide, please. So our vision of the district is that every child be college, career, and community ready. So what that means is we want our graduates to have a positive high school experience. So that means they have to have a strong sense of identity, purpose, and agency, which you've seen in our graduate profile. So this means all students will graduate with a post-secondary plan that may be evidenced by college credit, industry certification, and or work experience. As our students make the transition, next slide please. As our 8th grade students make the transition to high school, we want them to have choice, but more importantly, we want them to be informed of what's out there for them. And so as they enter their freshman academy, they have to be aware of what we offer, right? So all freshmen enter the freshman academy at their respective high school, Desert View or Sunnyside. Then, as they move on from 9th grade to 10th grade, they select a college and career academy. So at Desert View High School, we have the Academy of iSTEM. Our second academy is Culinary Arts, Ag Science, and Hospitality. And our third academy is what we call VPA, Visual Performing Arts. And then at Sunnyside High School, we have the Best Academy, which is Business, Entrepreneurship, Software Technology, and Transportation. They have the Academy of Law, Public Safety, and Security. And then the last academy is the Medical and Allied Health Sciences. You know, as we moved into academies several years ago, we wanted to make sure that students had choice, that they were able to choose a sequence of courses that they can gain something from. You know, I always use the example, and it's probably not the best example, but I remember sitting in elective classes that I didn't choose, and I really didn't care to be there. Now, you know, and you'll hear this later in the presentation, you know, we do inventories, we make sure that our students are well informed of their choices. So as they enter high school, they got a lot of say in what pathway they want to choose, and they have a lot of say in what academy they want to choose. Next slide. So as you can see, oh, thank you. So as you can see, I mentioned the academies at Desert View High School. There's 3 academies, and under of those academies, there's pathways that students can choose. So for example, in the iSTEM Academy, you've heard a lot about our precision manufacturing program at Desert View High School. Students have the opportunity, if they stay in that sequence long enough, they have that opportunity to earn the dual credit, right? Take some of those PIMA courses that we have dual credit opportunities. They have the opportunity to earn industry certification, and they have the opportunity to take part in some type of internship work experience. So again, these are the ones at Desview High School, and then at Sunnyside High School, the same thing. After their freshman year, they choose one of these academies, and then there's pathway under each of these academies. And as I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of opportunity for dual credit, a lot of opportunity for industry certification and work experience. So we like to say, when a student selects an academy for their high school experience, they and their parents should understand that they are making a career exploration decision and not a career decision. So they're exploring what their strengths are, they're finding themselves, right? They're trying to find that purpose, that strong sense of purpose and that drive. But at the same time, we want them to have that experience where when they leave high school, they've had a good experience and they're a little bit, they've taken advantage of the opportunities and they're in a better place as they transition to college. I'm going to pass it on to Mr. John Schubel here as he's going to discuss how students make informed decisions. Thank you.
Good evening, Ms. Hernandez, governing board members, Superintendent Holmes, members of the audience. As Mr. Gastelum just mentioned, my name is John Schubel. I am the assistant principal that oversees Freshman Academy at Sunnyside High School. With this year's transition from 9th to 10th grade being virtual, we wanted to ensure that our guidance and our service to our students was going to be as robust as it has been in previous years. In this slide, you're going to see right now a timeline of how we are approached to ensuring that, and as students go through their decision-making process with respect to their upcoming academic choices and their high school experience. It's in 4 parts there. It's over 4 weeks. It was sequential in structure, where each week basically is going to fold into the following week with the work that the students and counselors and various stakeholders complete. Next slide, please. Oh, that's right. Thank you. Thank you, sir. In this slide here, basically this is kind of an overview of what the Naviance screen looks like with the kids partake in. It's a self-assessment where they go through a series of checklist options where they select activities that they like to do, subjects in school that they have an interest in, and some of the personal qualities that they may have that kind of help then filter down into what we'll see here in a second, which are the clear career clusters. But essentially, they go through these checklists and they mark off attributes that are kind of important to them, that they have a natural interest in, subjects that they like. And then if you, let's see, the next slide here. This is then what they end up seeing. And so on this one here, you'll see that there's 3 top tier clusters that the students then get generated based on those attributes that they selected. Again, so students review these career clusters, which will then provide an overview in the area of the career cluster. It provides some information concerning employment outlook, plan of study, and careers that fit within that particular cluster. Students can then explore careers within those clusters based on the options that are provided when they actually click on those different boxes. And so when they're looking at the careers, again, they're going to see some of that employment outlook, fields of study, the majors that they may have to go into at the post-secondary level. This next slide here is what we refer to as a flow chart. It actually outlines the pathways that the students will follow as they go through the next 3 years of their high school experience. So again, what happens is they go through that assessment, and then they'll work with their counselors in a classroom lesson that explores those pathways in more detail. And these pathways align with those career clusters, essentially tying the 2 pieces together. And so students are able to visualize those class pathways that they're going to take as they move through their career exploration decision. The following week, this is during the week of February 2nd, the students explored courses within these flowcharts at a more detailed level. So basically, students begin by reviewing some videos that their counselors put together for them. And in those videos, they're going to look at essentially the course selection process, the CTE programs, and also the academies that we offer at the high schools. Once they go through that in the individual exploration phase, down below there's actually teaser videos that every program created, and the kids have an opportunity during their CCP classes to go ahead and take a look at those and kind of see it through a 2 or 3 minute little teaser video, what type of skills they're going to experience and develop, and then their general experience of the course as they go through it. So again, you know, the final part of that, excuse me, is then the last couple days of that individual exploration week is where the students then have an opportunity to start looking at some of the literature and the resources that's out there that the district has provided, the CTE department has provided, the counselors have provided, and then My counterpart, Ms. Dong, will speak to here in a little bit about some of the virtual websites that we've created so that the kids can kind of take a look at the CT program offerings that each school provides. This next slide right here is then our kind of wrap up in a way before course selection, where students are going to have an opportunity to partake in a CTE showcase. So it's our career and technical education showcases. Both sites offered this. Students will attended 2 program Google Meets that was based on a rotation, and then they had the option to select up to 3 additional Google Meets so they could experience something of their choice that they were interested in. And here the students had an opportunity to actually see, talk, listen, and kind of take a look at the programs from their actual future teachers that they'll have as they move into their sophomore year. It was a great opportunity. It also had some panels for students, different types of videos. It was just a great experience for the kids to partake in. And I believe that there's a video on this particular slide.
A little bit of a taste of what students.
Yeah.
Morning, everybody. My name is Mr. Letta. I'm the instructor for Blue Devil Biotech. After you. It's a PTE class, which means I'm training you for work. By the end of the first year, if you stay with this and you do what we ask, you're going to be ready for work. It'll last.
In class, we do coding primarily. As I said, 90% of the stuff that we do is create. We'll be doing art projects, designing websites, designing what these things should look like.
One of the reasons you should take photography is if you like to be creative, then photography is a place to be because it allows you to step into that and you get to just learn a lot.
This class, you could really express yourself and be original and creative, as well as learning the technical aspects, and additionally to the careers.
That we have our classroom directly adjacent from the athletic training room. So usually we'll have lecture in our classroom and then come straight into the athletic training room to complete any live activities. This year has been a little bit special just because there's something going on.
Graphic design is just a matter, generating ideas on what particular design you want to create, something for a shirt. Then you start, thinking of what that design is going to look like by image, by font, typography that you add.
What we do here in automotive technology is we fix cars, period.
Okay, so I first started as a student in my sophomore year, and I saw very little girls, but I had motivation to be like them because I wanted to be in their position. I got AC certified. I got my internship because I did well in this class.
I would strongly recommend you guys to take this class, mainly because it is really important to have some knowledge on cars.
What you get in computer applications, real-world concepts. You're taught real concept about business, what goes on in business, what to expect in a business environment. You learn how to own and run a business. CT programs have the industry certification that gets you foot in the door when you're looking for a job, employment, or starting your career.
So we're offering you lots of opportunities to learn about things in the criminal justice system.
My name is Mariah, and I'm currently a junior. So I always knew that I wanted to do something in law enforcement, which is why this was really easy for me to decide on. My sophomore year was actually my first year in this program, and I absolutely loved it. I got to meet a police officer. We asked questions, learned about the pros and cons of their job, and we also learned how to handcuff people, which was really fun.
What I love about my job is we get to do the outside of the car. So we do the outside, and then we also do some of the vehicles on the inside. And then we also can service the air conditioning unit on your vehicle. As a school, we never run out of work.
So again, that was just a little taste of some of the different Google Meets that the kids were able to partake in with the CTE showcase, kind of outlining some of the experiences and skills that they'll pick up over the next 3 years. Okay, thank you. The last part to this is that having families be a part of it was super important to us. So what we went about doing is creating a series of informational pieces that went out to the families and letting them know basically the overview of the process that their students would be experiencing over the next 4 weeks, how they could be a part of it, some of the things to look out for as the kids were coming home and talking about the experiences that they were having. And ultimately, at the end of it there, as you see that last bullet point, we did have some of the parents attend the course selection piece with the student, and so they were able to kind of be part of that process. Kids were asked to print out their selection so they could take it home, review it with the parents. You know, family involvement is super important with this process as these students are selecting, you know, their exploration process over the next 3 years. So it's something we definitely wanted to make sure we included. But that's kind of the piece that I have. I am going to now hand it off to Ms. Dong, my counterpart over at Desert View High School. Thank you.
Good evening, Superintendent Holmes and members of the governing board. As Mr. Schubel said, my name is Kathy Dong. I am the assistant principal at Desert View High School Freshman Academy. And I'm excited to share this part of the presentation, which you'll notice there are similarities for how we service and provide services for our students from the 8th grade to the 9th grade and the 9th grade to the 10th grade. As my wonder twin said, we really want to be intentional for all of the services we provide. And part of that is to make sure we map it out in these 4-part processes. And so we did kick this off in December. Go ahead and move that forward. Oh. Sorry about that, just a technical piece here. Okay. All right, there we go. So what we are sharing is that we kicked it off with our parent to student welcome in December. And this was a Rise Up event where we did this digitally, as Mr. Schubel mentioned. Part of those challenges is meeting our families in that digital place. And so we were really excited. We had over 120 participants at that Rise Up event. And that was a collaboration between Sunnyside and Desert View High Schools. And that was just the introduction to the relationship that we are starting to build with those 8th grade students. And then fast forward to January and February, where we had counselor-led sessions on high school transition and career exploration. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. And then, of course, they did course selection, just like our 9th to 10th grade students did. And we are going to have spring assemblies to welcome class of 2025. That's coming up here in May. And we have the Summer Boost program that we're really excited to share with you all tonight. So at the Rise Up event, we wanted to really showcase what the schools are all about, but also provide resources, because one of the things that our 8th grade students are sharing, and they shared at the Superintendent Advisory Council as well, that there's this nervousness and anxiety about what is high school going to be like. I'm not sure. So what we really need to do is provide them with resources, give them access to that high school life. Part of that is information, and the other part is just let's bring them together. Let's have them see what it's all about and have our students who are high school students be those ambassadors. And so the first step was the resource. And at the Rise Up event, we shared our high school websites. So let me share with you what that looks like. This is Sunnyside's. This is Desert View's. I'll go back to that in just a moment. But you'll notice that we do have a plethora of resources that we shared, and both Mr. Schubel and I had mirror websites so that our 8th grade students can take a look at the resources that they had at their disposal. We also shared with them at that Rise Up event a highlights video I'm not going to play that one for you tonight, but hopefully members of the board and the community and Superintendent Holmes, you can take a look at that high school video, that Rise Up video, because we're really proud of that. It's a showcase just like the CTE one that you viewed before. So as I mentioned, we have these websites to provide information, and the information that we share is a lot of technical information for high school courses, but it's also introduction information. So if I can go here, if, let's see, share. You'll see here that we have our counselors and courses. And it's not just the documents, right? So of course we're going to provide our education planning guide, but as you can see here, we have our counselors that are listed. They can see how the counselor names are broken down, so they'll immediately see a face to their name. Who are their counselors going to be when they come to their high school? There's a video introduction to meet them, and this was before our counselors actually went to have conversations with the 8th grade students for their lessons. And so in addition to that, we have resources here on the academies and pathways that were spoken to earlier. And in a little while, we'll have Ms. Maricela Felix share with you that interaction on the website, on the district website, but we house it in multiple places because as we have said before, information needs to be shared everywhere, 7 times 7 different ways, where we're going to do it 1,000,000 times, 1,000,000 different ways for our 8th grade students to feel comfortable and safe about the information that they're getting. And so we put it all over in terms of our pathways. You also see the exceptional education needs so that students who have IEPs can feel comfortable about who they need to go to. So it's really about empowering students with information so that by the time they get to high school, they'll know who to go to ask questions. And so that portion of the counselor-led lessons that happened in January was a high school 101, okay? So we talk about graduation requirements. The transition from 8th grade to 9th grade can be challenging for students, especially around what does it mean to be a high school student versus all those other years of experience that they've had. They don't just move, you know, sequentially if they don't have the credits. So having that idea of what it means to have credits, a semester-based credit versus a year, the requirements. So do you need 4 years of social studies? No, you need 3 credits. So what does that mean? And so we do a lot of education with them. And our counselors are phenomenal. Sunnyside and Desert View counselors break it down to the parts, and then they show them what does that look like incrementally then year after year, because they need to look at a whole plan but not overwhelm them initially. And so they talk about, let's just talk about freshman year, but this is how it impacts your future years as well. So they have that overview, but they talk about Freshman Academy, which is unique. Not every school has a freshman academy. And so the ability for us to offer a safe space for freshman students to attend classes with other freshman students in their cohort means a lot. And not only that, we have them attending classes in a separate part of our buildings respectively. And so we're really excited when we go to the 8th grade schools that we can share with them what makes Sunnyside School District unique in the fact that we offer these freshman academy experiences. And so with that, the logistical piece of their pathway is something that they need to see broken down. And so the district has created the course guide interactively. And so Ms. Maricela Felix, the Director of Public Information, I'm going to hand it over to her so she can show you exactly what that looks like.
Thank you so much. Good evening, members of the board, members of the audience, Superintendent Holmes. I'm really, really excited to finally be able to showcase this piece. Mr. Baca, can you pull up the PDF on the website? So there's a lot of creative marketing minds in my department, and so that's kind of the approach that we took because there were so many different pieces to tie together to try to make this one resource that was digestible for both 8th graders, but their parents as well. And I believe you guys have had a chance to flip through the book. So I'm gonna kind of walk you through what our process was to create this final piece. And so, as you can see, we started here by tapping into that inner child, right? Like that we all have is, what did you want to be when you grow up? And asking that question. And then as you go to page 2, you'll see that we use 2 assessments here, personality assessments. And the first one that you see here on this page is Holland's theory of career choice. So this one specifically is going to help an individual refer to a theory of careers and vocational choices, but they're based on your personality types. So once you go through this assessment, you'll see 6 different personality types here, but you should end up with 3 based on the score you receive from that assessment. If you go to the next page, this one starts a 2-page spread here, and this is one that we're mostly all familiar with, which is the Myers-Briggs. And this is a self-report inventory that's designed to identify personality types, but also tap more into how you think and what drives you. And you can see some of the questions here. It's how do you interact with the world and what energizes you, or what, like, more lifestyle questions. How do you prefer to live? How do you make decisions? What does that process look like? And so once you have completed this Myers-Briggs assessment, you will end up with a code, right? Based on, again, those personality types. And it's like ESTJ or ISTJ, INTP. We've all kind of taken those tests. So you'll end up with these 2 unique codes based on that assessment that you take. And then you can match up those codes to one of the academies. So once you start going through the following pages, you'll be able to see the academies listed matched up with that particular personality test or those interests that you might have identified after taking the assessment. So really the result is a multifunctional tool that matches the results of the 2 assessments to a particular academy. And in addition to providing that match, there's a page dedicated to each of the academies with a short description, some of the career opportunities that might be available to you after going through that academy. And then in addition to that, the last layer is basically a roadmap of courses that a student would be able to take throughout their high school journey for the particular academy that they're interested in. So very easy to navigate through. We try to keep the words at minimum and make this more graphic and more visual that way. So when we were working on this last spring through summer, obviously we had the pandemic happen, and we knew that we needed to allow students to be able to access this digitally, right? So rather than just converting this into a PDF that we put on the website, we sped up the process of converting this into an interactive piece on the website. So that is, Mr. Baca will show you that. This is pretty much what you can find in the book and in those first few pages, just without the graphics, obviously. But the neat thing about this is that when you start going down this list and checking off your, the things that apply to you, at the very end, it'll generate those 2 codes that I talked about in the print version, and then take you to a link that takes you to that particular academy. So I thought it was, in response to the pandemic, right? We wanted to just be able to offer this type of tool, and we're really happy with the way that turned out. The other benefit of having this interactive digital piece is that we can add more resources, link it up to the websites that you have all built, layer the white pages that go more into depth about each of the academies. So there's a lot of possibilities here with the interactive digital piece that we can build upon. So does anybody have any questions?
Yes. Yeah, I have a few. So I guess since we're on like the topic of the academies, is there like a capacity limit in the academies? Like if X amount of too many kids choose the transportation academy, I mean, is there a capacity?
They will answer that.
Okay.
I'll go ahead and answer that question, and then Mr. Baca, if you can go back to the presentation while I'm doing that, and I'll just use the clicker to finish out the rest of the presentation. But after I answer this question. So Mr. Taylor, in terms of academies, the capacity is really based on the numbers of sections and students we can have in each section. Our courses are always driven by student need. So if you notice that Desert View had an education professions class that was added to our Cash Academy. And so the education professions class actually was added also to Sunnyside High School because of the success, in large part to what was happening at Desert View, but also because the need was there with Sunnyside High School students saying, we want this too. And so with that, we were able to hire a teacher for that course and then build the sections around the student need. So that's the CTE classes itself. As far as academies, we can place students in academies all over. It's the class caps that are limiting, but it's not that we can't add more depending on student needs. So we can always adjust our master schedule based on that student need. Okay. So I can have more students in my STEM academy than I do in my VPA academy. But if that number increases in VPA, we're all for it.
Good, cool. I had another question. How many programs offer the industry certifications?
I'm gonna go ahead and let NJ Utter, our CTE director, answer that question.
Good evening, members of the governing board, Superintendent Holmes. By the state mandate right now, all programs must be tied to at least one industry certification. Frankly, some of them carry more weight for direct employment than some of the other ones do, but all of our programs are connected to at least one industry certification, with the exception of the Air Force ROTC program. They don't have a specific industry certification. However, a certain number of years in that program does translate into higher rank for a student who does choose to enter the military, and they're also working towards adding a drone certification program as part of the Air Force JROTC program, which would then be transferable to direct employment as well. Thank you for the question.
Very cool. And I have another one. This one might be more for Mr. Schuer. Can I take my car to Sunnyside to get fixed?
Yeah, our kids love to work on different vehicles. It's a great question. Anytime, you're more welcome to come by. And I know we have we have auto body and we also have auto mechanic. Okay. They're more than willing to take a look at anything you have.
Okay,
yeah, great
cool.
question.
Then ask me what's wrong with it, because I don't know.
Thank you, sir.
We'll just wrap up these.
Yeah, let me go ahead and wrap up the slides. There we go. Sorry, it skips. So. There we go. I'll go back. Okay, I'll let you know. Go forward, please. One more. Perfect. Okay. So I'll go ahead and wrap up the slides part of the presentation. So as Ms. Felix was letting us know about that interactive piece, and as you heard Mr. Schubel talk about the interests, you'll note that our students don't just do this one time, right? And so our students who are going into our high schools have different pathways, but that doesn't mean, you have one, you stick to one, and that's it. In 8th grade, we start introducing them, and we get them their interests, get the interest form, and really find out what is it that draws you to these schools. They have a survey listing their career interests and making the connections to CTE pathways during that time. And then they do the career interest for the specific CTE pathways. Also, for our 8th grade students, announcements were made to the parents about course selection, because families really need to be involved in that process and really understand what our high schools are offering. We've heard multiple times before when we've brought our 8th grade students onto our high school campus from our families and from teachers even that have come to chaperone, wow, I didn't know we had this here. So we really want to make sure that we do a better job in making sure the whole family and community knows what we have here. But part of that is also making them aware that this is going to happen. And so be on the lookout for the information that's coming to you. Once students completed those selection forms via the Google Forms, our counselors were able to work with that information to more specifically tailor conversations for course selection around what that 8th grade student and hopefully the conversations they had with their families to pick the right classes for them in their first year of high school. And then our high schools hope to host an in-person event in May as part of another boost. Actually, Summer Boost is separate, but is another event so that our 8th grade students do get that outreach. As you have seen, and I know as you've experienced, our student ambassadors are really the driving force and the best representatives of what our schools offer, because they are so honest about the benefits and how they are impacted in the classes that they take. And so we really are excited about planning these events before the school year is over. In the past, we've had our 8th grade students visit much earlier in the year, but as you know, the challenges with the pandemic have prevented us from doing that. But because of the process of moving forward in opening schools, we also know that we're planning ahead too to bring those students on campus. If you can move forward. And so that brings me to summer, because our 8th grade students are our high school students even when they're in 8th grade, and then the summer before. So it's not just starting in August, right? And so we're very excited about two parts. We have a summer school offer, which is a 10-day, half a credit of an elective, where they're going to experience different classes, they're going to experience different skill sets. So we're calling it Mission Ready. And this is based around being college ready, career ready, and community ready. So 3 rotations during the day where they're going to gain some experiences being college ready. So how do you note take? How do you organize? How do you use inquiry in your classes? You're going to have classes on being career ready. What does that look like to choose your path? What does that look like in terms of your interests? So being self-aware. And then being community ready. So how do you have a growth mindset? So these are skill sets that they're going to be able to experience in addition to doing so within an academic context. We're going to have assemblies with the students. We're going to have opportunities also for students who are not signed up for the 10-day elective. The first day of each session is dedicated to an open orientation, so every 8th grade student can come and do the orientation. And then that will lead us to the other 9 days for the students who are in the elective class. But if you can only come to one day and commit to one day, we'll have that opportunity. But we really encourage you to do all 9 days, or all 10 days. And so we're going to be really promoting this program and helping students know that this is also a safe way to get their feet wet, if you will. And it's also a way for us to get to know their families and build relationships with our incoming Jaguars and Blue Devil students. In addition to that, we're also going to offer a 3-day Jaguar Jumpstart and Blue Devil, I knew I was going to, Discovery, thank you. I don't know why that word, it just keeps eluding me. So those events are going to be in the same time, and during that time, we're going to do something similar with the 10 days, but we're going to do it condensed in 3 days, and we're going to do rotations, but there'll be a lot more team building activities, a lot more, the clubs and athletics fair will happen at both experiences, but you'll have some experiences with guest speakers at the 3-day event. Both events will have assemblies. Both events we're hoping to have a pep rally, and we're going to still have our mitigation strategies in place. So we want families to know at all of these events that we hold for our students, both incoming and our continuing students, we will continue to have mitigation strategies throughout, because not only is their transition important to us, but their health and safety and well-being has always been important to us. And so that's always at the top of our priorities. Whenever we plan with these in mind. And so I'm very excited about these events. Mr. Schubel and I called him Wonder Twin earlier, but we're in lockstep. The collaborative process between the two high schools is fantastic. And specifically with our freshman academies, we know that high schools tend to compete for students, right? In our schools, in our district, Mr. Schubel and I want our kids here in this district and our programs to really draw them. So whatever that looks like, we're going to have our programs really draw the students. But when it comes to encouraging students to be Sunnyside strong, that means that he and I are in line with all of the opportunities and experiences that we share and offer for our incoming 8th grade students. And so while we may be twins, if you have twins, you also know that we're unique, because twins have their own unique personalities too. And Mr. Schubel and I are very unique personalities. But when it comes to the work around our freshman students, we are completely in lockstep. And you'll see, and I hope you caught that, the collaboration, not only with us in the high schools, but with the middle school counselors and the administrators, going from that 8th grade to 9th grade place. That is so key and also unique, because not every district has that, where the high schools are actively working with the middle schools to ensure that this is smooth, but also helps our students thrive, not just survive their high school experience. And so with that, we are pretty much finished with the presentation for tonight. We'll open it up to any questions. For my colleagues here can step to the podium also if you have specific questions for any one of us.
I have a comment and a few questions. First off, I appreciate all the effort that was put in to creating the academies and making sure that we're trying to be as interactive as possible. I really liked how on the website that you showed that the students can meet the counselors before day one. I think that's awesome. That's such a great way to get them to see a familiar face. And I really like that we're engaging our middle school students. I'm not sure who this question would go to, but I'm just curious if we know if conversations are being had before 8th grade as well about the academies that we offer. And then just curious about the our students that are English as a second language. Have we seen that? Do you have any in your academies where you've had to change the curriculum, or do we make sure that we also have material that's available in Spanish or in other languages for families and students?
This is NJ Etter, and I'm happy to answer those questions for you. In regards to, I'm really glad you asked the question about ELL students, because we forgot to tell you that we are translating all the materials into Spanish as well. So those will be available to our families who are Spanish speaking. One of our focuses with our CTE teachers, actually this year we did a training on, once again, what are the best practices, the strategies that are most effective with helping our English language learners be successful when they're having to navigate through manuals, for example, difficult reading that is written in English. And so, yes, that is something that we continue to work on and try to support our students in being successful regardless of their background. Regarding the younger students, I think Kathy Dong said it really well as far as we're constantly looking for new ways to make sure we're reaching out into the community. So one of the things that we did, I think it was January of last year, is we actually hosted a district collaboration for our elementary counselors at the high schools. Culinary arts, the students served them lunch, and then we did a tour of the academies. And we have some other promotional materials, little booklets that have all the CTE programs in them. And the elementary counselors took them back. In fact, just today we were talking to an elementary counselor who said she then incorporate those booklets into her 6th grade curriculum so that she could answer questions and help students get excited about the fact that wherever school ends for them in our system, that they know that they have amazing opportunities that are available for them. So we're trying to move into the elementary levels as well, but always welcome for new ideas also.
Thank you.
I just want to make a comment here real quick. First of all, man, that summer programs is extremely exciting. Hearing everything that you're going to be doing, it sounds like you're really going to get the students all geared up and ready for the fall semester, and also not nervous and not scared. I think they're going to feel very comfortable once they start the fall semester if they go through that summer program. It's an excellent program, all of them. The first one, the first 5-day one, 10 days, the 10-day one, and also the one that's 3 days. They both sound incredible. It kind of reminds me of New Start at the university, where they try to give you as much information as possible to make you as comfortable as possible and to help you to succeed. That's what it reminds me of. So I just want to make that comment that I'm really excited about that program. Excited to see, how it goes. And I just request that when the fall semester starts, I know that at the beginning we're very, very busy, but sometime during the fall semester, if you can come back and give us a report as to how that summer program went, that would be great. Thank you.
I'll make Ms. Hernandez, you don't mind, I'll just make one comment. I just was just appreciative of the team and the efforts. That interest inventory catalog kind of helping navigate has been something that we've been talking about for a long time. Very impressive work by the team to really just help students who really don't know where their interests are to really start helping them hone in. That's a very sophisticated tool that you see certainly at the university level as, people are going through their study classes to try to figure that out. But to do that early on and repeatedly through a student's academic career, I think is super important, because we are definitely in the exploratory stage of really finding an identity around what you want to do, where you find affinity towards. And so that's super well done to see that it's now interactive. I think the purpose of this presentation was really to let the governing board and audience know that even though we're in a pandemic, we haven't backed off of our efforts to make sure that our students, both in 8th and 9th grade, know what's available to them, and continue to find different modalities by which we give them accessibility, right, to these course selections. I think that English language learner question was excellent. That's still an area that we want to make sure just, with many of us that speak 2 languages, it just kind of becomes intuitive, but we forget that not all of our teachers have those tool sets, right? And so we have to make sure that those that are not bilingual are provided with professional development to accommodate language barriers that may occur in some of these technical languages that are being used in some of these courses. So we'll continue to make that a priority, and as we're moving forward, that just for the record, that Boost program and the summer school is something we have not done for about at least 7-8 years, just for financial reasons. The reason why we're able to do this now is that the new ESSER funds that we're going to receive actually provide us with the opportunity to do things that we haven't been able to do in the past, because we don't have an override and we haven't had existing funds. So these are programs that are completely added value that we're going to test the waters for our community on doing some great things with this funding source, so that at some point, if necessary, we can showcase why additional funds are needed to do great things in our district. So thank you.
did have a quick question for NJ. Just really quick here, who pays, I know that some of our courses, also end with, our students getting credentials, that are nationally, recognized credentials. Who pays for those credentials? I can't remember who pays for that.
Sure. So at this point, we have been able to pay the fees for any industry credential for any and all students who are ready to attempt them. Sometimes they have to have finished a certain amount of the course in order to try. I'm very happy to share with you also that there was a new source of funding last year, which is out of an industry, it's a governor's incentive program for industry credentials. And so each student who earns a specified industry credential in a high demand area, we can earn up to $1,000 per student per credential. So in the first year of that program, Sunnyside Unified picked up an additional $49,000, and we're turning that money back into paying for some of these very expensive credentials. So hopefully those numbers will continue to increase as well. Thank you.
That's great, thank you. And also, just another quick comment, Maricel, Felix, your graphics with the courseworks and stuff, it reminded me of college course books. You did an excellent job. It looks extremely professional, and like I said, something you would normally find in a college catalog. So thank you for that too.
No problem. I just want to give a shout out to Memo from our team. He's the one who designed all the beautiful layouts. So thanks.
Thank you. That concludes our report, Ms. Hernandez.
Alrighty, can we have a motion to approve the governing board members recess into executive session for discussion of personnel pursuant to ARS 38-431-0381?
Yes, I'd like to motion that the governing board members recess into executive session for discussion of personnel pursuant to ARS 38-431.03A1.
I second the motion.
Roll call.
Ms. Dawn?
Yes.
Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Ms. Munoz?
Aye.
Ms. Hernandez?
Aye. Motion approved. We're going to executive session. think everyone's back. Can we have Mr. Taylor read the results of the executive session?
Okay.
Or actually, do I have to approve it before? Here, no?
No,
Just
Mr.
read
He,
it?
he can just read the motion and then we can get a second.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you.
I motion that we approve the appointment of Javier Badia at Craycroft Elementary for the 21-22 school year and be placed on step 2.
Second.
Roll call.
Ms. Dawn?
Yes.
Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Ms. Nunez?
Aye.
Ms. Hernandez?
Aye.
Thank you. He's here actually right now. We'll give him a round of applause, which we know. Maybe you can step up. Can you step right here just so they can see who you are, since they can't see you, if you don't mind, just so they can actually see you in the camera, Mr. Badia. So we'll put you on camera so they'll see you from both sides and you can wave.
Congratulations, Mr.
Congratulations.
So thank you. Congratulations, Mr. Badia.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Alrighty, do we have any suggestions for future agenda items?
I don't.
Alrighty, Mr. Taylor, any suggestions?
No suggestions.
Okay. I don't think there's any unfinished business. So, can we get a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
I second the motion.
Roll call.
Ms. Dawn?
Yes.
Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Ms. Nunez?
Aye.
Ms. Hernandez?
Aye.
Sorry.
It's okay. Alrighty, I hope everyone has a good evening. Motion approved.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night. Bye, everyone.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Yeah, this new executive order just kind of
Oh, that's just wild.
put us all in a rush.